What is the best comeback you ever said or heard? This might be a little late, but anyways. This actually happened last week at a family Christmas party, so I got a gift card from my uncle to Shoppers. It was $10 worth. He starts laughing like a madman, saying loudly, "How many condoms can you buy with that?" And I quickly responded with, "Enough to last you a lifetime." My family starts bursting out laughing and my uncle was laughing even harder. A guy I knew was using a dirty pickup line on this really hot girl and her father overheard and told him to move on. My friend quickly said, "Sorry dude, but your daughter is freaking hot." The girl's dad replied, "Well, bring your mom over and I'll make you one just like her." In a fight over the use of a do-it-yourself car wash booth, punk kid to my granddad, "Frick you old man, you're not my dad." Granddad, "Well, I don't know, let me see a picture of your mom." Same thing happened with my grandpa. Take into consideration my grandpa had just moved to this apartment from Armenia, so he was old fashioned, and the kid was Armenian. It went like this: "Grandpa, stop making noise." "Kid, you can't tell me what to do. This is America." "Grandpa, slap." I was once in a hotel elevator headed down to the lobby. I took out my phone to get directions to the bar where I was meeting my friends. A woman in the elevator, who was part of a group of people I don't know, sneered at my phone and said, "Ugh, I hate technology." To which I replied, "Then why aren't you taking the stairs?" Her friends erupted in laughter and she was completely destroyed. I pulled out my phone after stepping into the elevator. Ugh. I hate how people just pull out their cell phones to avoid awkward situations in elevators, quips some uppity girl who is clearly addressing me as we're the only two in the elevator. Well, it's a lot better than talking to the buttholes here. It was a quiet ride after that. My proudest moment in comebacks. Me and my friend were in a movie theater bathroom taking a pee. He always likes to try and make me feel uncomfortable in public places, so he says, "What's wrong with your dong, man? It has a red ring around it, you should get it checked out." Without missing a beat I go, "Yeah, it's your mother's lipstick." Dumbstruck silence from my friend while the man next to us is shaking with laughter. As we leave the bathroom we walk past the guy and he's telling his friends what I had said. It was very rewarding. My father, a Vietnam veteran Marine, in an armed robbery. "Get on the floor." "No, it's dirty. I have a gun." "Son, I've been shot before. It doesn't hurt that bad." Slightly baffled, the gunman continued the robbery, ignoring my father. I can just imagine the robber continuing with the crime, occasionally throwing a WTF look over his shoulder at your dad. This guy I know was walking down the street wearing bright pink shorts. As he walks by a homeless guy, the homeless guy says, "Nice shorts." F without skipping a beat, the guy I know says, "Nice house," and keeps walking. So cruel, but one of the quickest and sharpest comebacks I can think of. I was late for class and my lecturer tried to embarrass me by saying, "Nice of you to join us. We were just defining female sexual pleasure," and then I said, "So was I." I've never felt so dapper. My brother was a bit portly in the 6th grade. A popular girl was teasing him about his weight. "Ha, ha, look, he has boobs," she said. "Jealous?" he retorted. Stunned silence. Brother walks away into sunset like a victorious samurai. That last sentence got me. When I was younger my mother would take me grocery shopping weekly and there was this cart guy who was slightly mentally handicapped and my mother would always stop to talk to him for a bit. One day after going this, a woman approached us and said, "Oh, I guess today is when they let all the retards out." Very calmly my mother responded, "It's so nice that they let you all out once in a while." It was awesome. When I was a teenager my brother was being a dong at the dinner table about how I could hear him and his girlfriend banging every night. So I retorted, "I take comfort in the fact it only lasts 30 seconds. It was magical." I was at a local sandwich shop on my lunch break one day, and while I was eating, a man in his 20s came up to me, a male, and said hello. I kindly responded back with a hello, to which he said, "You look really sharp." I was wearing slacks, a dress shirt and tie. I thanked him for the compliment, but he wasn't done. He said, "I don't normally do this, but I figured I might as well give it a shot. Would you like to ever go out to dinner with me sometime?" Me, being the heterosexual male I am, just said, "Thank you for the compliment, but no thank you. He said okay and walked out, leaving me to finish my sandwich. One thing about this sandwich shop is it's right next to a high school, so high schoolers frequent it at lunchtime, and this day was no different. As I finish my sandwich I proceed to walk out. Next to the exit is a group of 3 guys from the local school, and as I pass, one of them looks up at me, snickers, and says, F. Now, how do you react to a 15-year-old punk calling you F? You certainly can't lecture them, because it will just go in one ear and out another. You can't yell at them, because it makes you look their age. What should I do? Without even thinking, I turned around, looked at his sandwich, grabbed it and took a huge bite. I chewed it slowly, put it back on his plate, and walked away not saying a word. His face was priceless. Just a blank stare at his plate with a gaping mouth. All his 2 friends could muster out through their wheezing laughs were, oh shit. The kid never said a word. I never turned around, just walked back to my car and left. Don't know if it's true, but definitely worth posting. Arthur Wellesley, 1st Duke of Wellington, 1769 to 1852, undefeated general, most notably victor of Waterloo. Once, when a hostess at the Congress of Vienna apologized when a group of French officers turned their backs on him, he replied, I have seen their backs before, madam. Girl 1. I can drink a lot. I'm French Canadian. Girl 2. I'm Irish. I can drink more than you. Girl 1. Yeah, but I can stop. Only comeback I'd ever had the pleasure of making myself was at a Walgreens. I was behind some B in line who was generally trying to make the cashier's job a living nightmare, berating the girl, insisting she'd been given the incorrect amount of change, etc. The poor girl behind the counter was just trying to be nice and get through a single bad customer. After she said something about the worst help I've ever had, I just replied, hey, give the lady a break. Not overtly hostile, but she hardly turned to me and sneered, why don't you mind your own business? With all the quick thinking I could muster, I just responded, lady, I'm a veterinarian. Be my business. The few amassed customers and the cashier looked like they were gonna lose it. The lady gave me a glare that could chill bones, but she decided to just ignore me for the rest of her transaction. But she hightailed it out of that fricking Walgreens. In hindsight, I'm pretty lucky she didn't escalate the conflict. As a cashier, I wish more veterinarians passed through my lane. I hope this doesn't get buried. My brother is 2 years older than me. When I was a sophomore in high school and he was a senior, we played on the varsity soccer team together. He was easily the best player in the league, hands down. Every team game planned around stopping him, and they still couldn't. He was easily going to be MVP of the league. The best part is, he never ran his mouth. He never talked trash. We're in a tight game and there's this huge butthole who plays for one of our rivals, and he's talking crap to my brother the whole time. The kid gets called for fouling my brother and we get a free kick. As the kid's tracking back on defense, he says, Taylor, you freaking suck. You don't deserve MVP, you piece of crap. My brother just looks at him and has the coolest reply in the world. In his calmest voice he says, know what's funny? You know who I am and I have no idea who you are. My brother proceeded to score from the free kick, ate his cookies. You're the worst pirate I've ever heard of. But you've heard of me. I had a math teacher in high school who was well known for his outstanding ability to compute fairly complex calculations in his head. He rarely made errors. When he did, he usually caught it before the rest of the class did. One day he didn't and this girl pipes up in the back of the class and tells him he made an error. Naturally he checks his work and she is correct. He thanks her and tries to move on with the lesson. For the next minute the girl said some of the most hurtful things I imagine a teacher could hear. I don't remember the details, but I remember her last sentence was, I can't believe you made such a huge mistake. He took a moment, thought about what she said, turned his back to her and said, now your parents and I have something in common. She got up quietly and dropped the class that day. Just gold. Philip of Macedonia, father of Alexander, sent a message to Sparta. You are advised to submit without further delay, for if I bring my army into your land, I will destroy your farms, slay your people, and raze your city. The Spartan reply, if Philip and Alexander avoided Sparta entirely. Philip too is one of the most underrated dudes in history. He set everything up for Alexander's conquests. My own towering achievement. Drunk at a dinner party, my sister and I were drawing mustaches on each other with a burnt cork. A rather fat man walked by and said something snippy about the mustaches. So I said, "If you can have tea, I can have a mustache." His wife still hates me. Some fat girl at school came up to me and said, "You remind of this retarded kid on my bus." Then I said, "You remind me of my bus." Busted. In my high school years I was a pretty good kid, but my parents always were accusing me of doing ridiculous things. One time they thought I was stealing my mom's birth control and giving it to my girlfriend. They woke me up 10 minutes before my alarm went off to interrogate me. Here is how it went down. In my half-sleeping stupor. "Mom, good morning. We need to talk to you." Me. "I don't even have to get up yet." Mom. "Dad and I have noticed my birth control keeps disappearing." Me. "Gross, Mom." Mom. "Have you been taking my birth control?" Me. "Yes, I have, Mom. I've been taking it for 2 months, but she still got pregnant." My mom gave me a look that was 1 part angry, 2 parts concerned, and a final part that was funny, but I better not laugh. They dropped it and never brought it up again. Now I'm really curious about where the birth control really went, and your dad is my number 1 suspect. Dorothy Parker. Mr. Coolidge, I've made a bet against a fellow who said it was impossible to get more than 2 words out of you. Calvin Coolidge, you lose. Don't look at me in that tone of voice. Dorothy Parker. Oh man, I have a good one. It was in my US history class in high school. There were those students who were always noisy and obnoxious. They'd also pick on the teacher. He was a light-hearted 60-something old man with neat white hair. He had a great sense of humor, so he never gave it much thought. One day, one of loud dudes was like, "Hey Mr. Morgan, you know you look exactly like Colonel Sanders." To which he quickly responded, "Is that why your mom says I'm so finger-licking good?" My dad, who's a teacher, was asked by a student, "Sir, I think I saw you coming out of a brothel last night," to which he replied, "Well, I have to see your mum sometime. She never comes to parents' evening." During a dispute with some neighbors, Mrs. Neighbor says to me, "You'll have to take that up with Mr. Neighbor. He's the head of my household." Oddly enough, I had the presence of mind to answer, "Your household doesn't have a head, it just has 2 buttholes." On an NYC subway car, my grandma's friend was sitting with her, and as they were talking, her friend absent-mindedly started staring at a young group of men. Trying to be tough, one of them called over to her, saying, "Hey old woman, what the heck are you looking at?" And without missing a beat she replied, "I'm not sure, but when I figure it out I'll let you know." The rare grandma burn. While walking to a Halloween party dressed as Tigger, as guy across the street yells, "Hey Tigger, suck my dong." "No thanks, I prefer a full mouthful." His friends laughed at him and he blusters, "Frick you, with your small dong." "No thanks." Again. His friends laughed at him again. He shut up. Was out one time with a very good friend of mine. Some friends and their friends. Anyway, I just happened that these 2 very nice looking girls were left with me and my mate while rest of the others were getting drinks or food. We all just did the usual small talk and then it died off. Those hot girls were really not interested in us regular looking blokes. So after about 5 minutes of uncomfortable silence and ho-humming, one of the girls looking around says out loud to the other girl, making sure we hear it as well, "I wonder where all the good looking guys are at?" I instantly thought, "You low scumby," as if that was not directed at us. And my mate, who had some self-esteem issues as it was just started to hang his head slowly and slouch. Without missing a beat I retorted, "They are all probably with all the good looking girls." My mate wore the widest grin I had ever seen, and I obviously had a smirk on my face I could not hide. So the 2 hot girls made humph sound and excused themselves, never to be seen again. I don't get offended at the things that come out of your mouth. They're not nearly as bad as the things that go into it. Bro, you did not just insult my mother's cooking. This won't even get seen, but I was playing Halo a couple of years back and there was a young boy playing amongst a group of adults. By the sound of his voice, I'd put him at about 8ish. He was doing nothing wrong, relatively quiet, and not obnoxious when he actually spoke. Naturally, there was some shat adult who was riding him for a good 10 minutes about him being a kid, how much he sucked, On and on. Finally he asked the kid, who had obviously had enough, "Yo, how old are you, squirt? Have your balls even dropped yet? And your mom was there to catch them?" My godfather was visiting our family and he noticed the little strands of silver hair in my 10 or so year old brother, and he said to my little brother that grey hair means a part of your brain is leaking. My brother sensed the opportunity and said to the very white haired man, "Can't be good for you. I know it's nowhere near as good as some others here, but considering he was relatively young, he's 13 now, how quick he spat it back was what made it great." I'm proud of this moment in time. Was a senior in high school, enjoying free time at some area-wide meeting. Deco I think, when I walk by a group of kids from another school. Out of the blue, some guy in the group calls over to me. Guy, tossing a nickel in front of me. "Hey dude, give that to your mom for me." Me. "Huh, guy, don't worry about it. Just tell her it was for last night." A few chuckles from his group. I reply with an O of recognition, smile, and pick up the nickel. I then reach into my pocket, pull out 2 pennies, and toss them at his feet. Me. "There you go." Guy, sarcastically, "Oh, is this for my mom?" Me. "Nah, that's your change." My mom charges by the inch. There's no way this happened. Still, upvote. Not too late to the party am I? Overheard the bullying of a kid by someone probably a grade or 2 ahead of him. Standard homosexual bullying bulls. The poor kid is trying to shake it all off and be left alone and the bully was just going on and on. Kid, come on man, leave me alone. Bully, no way. What are you gonna do about it you little F? I think in a stroke of bravery and wit, the kid stares the bully right in the eyes, straight faced and says, "Kid, don't freaking test me, I will suck your dong right off." The bully was so awestruck he just shook his head and walked away. What do you even say to that kind of thing? My boss was showing a co-worker some programming related thing on the computer and apparently he did it quite fast because my co-worker said, "Wow, that was quick." To which he responded, with an arrogant smirk, "Yes, I'm the quickest of them all." Hearing this I simply asked, "Is that why you're single?" Rest of the co-workers exploded in laughter and my boss looked at me with a strange face that looked like "Screw you, but well played." These 2 ladies are going back and forth. Jokingly, when the question of possibly fighting comes up, Lady A replies, "You're not worth the skin off my knuckles." And without missing a beat Lady B replies, "Stop dragging them across the floor and maybe you'll have some left." That sounds like a line straight out of the incel sword fighting in The Secret of Monkey Island. Blue collar comedy. Some lady yells to Larry the cable guy from the balcony, "I love you, Larry," and he looks up in her direction and goes, "I told you to wait in the truck." Aliens, Hudson, male, and Vasquez, a somewhat butch female, are both members of the rescue team that is the focus of the movie. Hudson, mockingly, "Hey Vasquez, have you ever been mistaken for a man?" Vasquez, number, "Have you?" Game over man. Game over. Heard this from my brother who witnessed this after a night out a couple of years ago. On typical Saturday night a drunk guy was standing in a long taxi line talking trash and generally being a total douche to everyone around him to impress his lady friend for the evening. The people in line tried to ignore him for a good amount of time, but eventually they were pretty fed up with this ginger-faced moron. The douchebag eventually started talking to a bald guy in front of him saying something like, "I see you weren't the first guy in line when they handed out hair." To which the bald guy perfectly answered, "You're quite right about that. But when I finally reached the end of the line they only had ginger hair left so I didn't even bother." Laughter then proceeded and the douchebag kept his mouth shut. This is why as a ginger I keep my mouth freaking shut. Too much ammo to use against me in a hair argument. I'll be buried, but it's a good one, and maybe one person will read it. A guy from my building is sort of special, and he talks to himself a lot, but not much to other people. One day, a co-worker of mine asked, "Talking you yourself again, Kenny?" Ha 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 ha, stupid laughing. Without skipping a beat, Kenny replied, "Better than talking to you, Mark," and just kept walking down the hallway with no other response. This one's perfect. Totally unexpected and subtle. I could see this being in a movie. I am a cashier at Safeway. One time, I was helping a lady who did not speak English well at all. She had a very convoluted transaction. Food stamps, expired coupons, non-food items, and she didn't understand a whole lot of it and had plenty of questions. The entire transaction probably took 5-10 minutes, and when it was finally the next person's turn, he was obviously disgruntled. He said, "This country would be so much better without the foreigners." To which I replied, "I bet that's what the Native Americans said." He turned bright red and was silent the rest of the transaction. He turned bright red. He was trying to save face by convincing you that he was a Native American. Saw a Jimmy Carr show. He told the following story. When I was first starting off in comedy, I was doing a late night gig, which wasn't going great, and this guy pipes up with, "My mum died of cancer." I replied with, "Well, I'm sorry about that, but we were not talking about mums or cancer." He shouted back, "Yeah, well, that was funnier than this." Demi Lovato, "Well, some people work very hard for their dreams, but it's just not cut out for them. X Factor contestant. That's why you use auto-tune and I don't." Shooter McGavin, "You're in big trouble though, pal. I eat pieces of crap like you for breakfast." Happy Gilmer, "You eat pieces of crap for breakfast?" No. Not sure if this counts as a comeback, but given the context, it was pretty epic. My old secondary school in Belfast was essentially run by Catholic priests. Most of the teachers were regular people, and my A-level biology teacher was a staunch homosexual atheist, but there were still priests everywhere, mostly teaching things like English, religion and music. One day, our regular music teacher doesn't show up for class. Our music rooms were filled with all sorts of equipment, keyboards, drums, etc. So we couldn't be left alone. One of the priests was watching us, and as we didn't have much to do, was mostly chatting with us. Now there was one kid there called Daniel, who was a bit of a T anyway, that was busy chewing some gum. The priest ordered him to remove it immediately, against the school rules. Daniel obliged by pulling it out of his mouth, then sticking it under the desk, I guess as an act of defiance, before licking his fingers. The priest in question marched over to the desk, leaned down and said something I never expected a Catholic priest to say. "Finger licking good, just like your sister." At Burger King, voice and kitchen, "Where dat ashy cashier? Cashier, N. I ain't ashy, you ashy." Voice, B. "You Mount Vesuvius." "Oh no, he didn't." Benson, "Your brain is so small it could fit in the belly button of a Barbie doll with room left over for 3 raisinets and a list of your greatest accomplishments." If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.